another edition of MLB This Week. It's the MLB This Week podcast. And this week, of course, we're talking about the post-World Series week. My name is Rich.
And I'm Gary.
And we're, of course, joining you every week doing a podcast on baseball, talking all about the world of baseball. And, Gary, we have a brand new World Series champion in the San Francisco Giants.
We certainly do. And, Rich, we both picked the Giants. We picked them at 6, so we were off a little bit with the games, but picked the right teams. And what a performance by the Giants, and one great performance by Madison Bumgarner. Really a good series. Not any outstanding plays that will go down in memorable history, but still a great series nonetheless. Close games except for the one blowout, but a really good, solid series.
Yeah, and that about sums it up. And that about sums up how the Giants have won the World Series the past 3 times in the past 5 years. No complete domination. In fact, the Giants were the 10th seed in baseball this year. Came out of nowhere, and they seem to have that October magic about them. And that's been their forte over their now dynasty, they're calling it. But, yeah, they don't have one specific player except for this season seemed to be Madison Bumgarner. But the Giants seem to pull it together as a team and start to play better as a team in October for some reason. And they really didn't even have Madison Bumgarner is good, but he's not like one of the top flight pitchers of the league. Now he probably will be considered that, but before that, the Giants really didn't have that big ace like a CC Sabathia or Cliff Lee or somebody like that you would expect to be on a winning team like that.
Yeah, you're right. They did a couple of years ago. It looked like they were going to be some dominating pitching staff with Matt Cain and Tim Lincecum and those other guys. And now Matt Cain got hurt this year. Lincecum has stepped back and has not been as dominating as he was. Vogelsong's a little older, but still they get the job done. And Bumgarner, I mean, that performance in that World Series, actually the whole playoffs, when you think about it, was just amazing and something we haven't seen maybe since a Sandy Koufax or something. Kershaw might be the best pitcher in baseball, but when it comes to the postseason, at least this year, it was Bumgarner, and he was awesome. I mean, what can you say? He pitched a shutout, 100-and-something pitchers, came back 3 days later and pitched 5 innings in a Game 7. I mean, you can't get much more pressure than that, and the guy was just unbelievable. And, there's something about the Giants in an even year. I will not pick them next year, but I'll probably pick them in 2016 because, as you say, they're a dynasty now, at least in the even year dynasty, 10, 12, and 14. All the World Series champions.
Yeah, and of course, this series had very low ratings. In fact, it was on par for possibly ending up as the lowest rated series in the World Series history.
Yeah, it was close there, but they had 23.5 million people watch the Game 7, and it enable them to escape the distinction of the least watched World Series. I don't know why it wasn't watched more. It was a good series, I guess, because it's essentially 2 small market teams. Though I thought the allure of the Kansas City Royals and their Cinderella story, and I don't know if you consider, I guess San Francisco is considered a mid-market team, I guess, maybe not a big market team like the Dodgers are. But I really think that the layoff between the league championships and the World Series, that gap of time that they had there, I believe that killed the momentum. from the Division Series to the League Championship Series, and then the League Championship to the World Series. They had 4 or 5 days both times because they got done early, and it just killed it. I think they have to have 2 days in between. They have to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, that's for sure. It did seem like an awful long time for the Royals to be out of game action, and nothing really substitutes for that game action. They have to be continually playing, keep up at that high level, and like you said, I think that did kind of work against them. We have a breaking story as we're doing the podcast tonight. Only about a half hour ago this was announced. For you Giants fans out there, there's probably a lot more than there had been previous to them winning the World Series, but the Giants have extended a $15.3 million offer to Pablo Sandoval, a one-year deal for the Panda. We'll see if he takes that. Of course, the Giants in line to lose a lot of their top free agents, Jake Peavy amongst them, Pablo Sandoval also becoming a free agent, and it'll be interesting to see how many of them they keep on the team after it's all said and done.
Well, it seems like a lot of this year that a lot of the teams are making these qualifying offers because if they lose the guy, they get a draft pick. So I guess they don't. They don't really care, and it's mainly for guys that they really want to keep, and I'm sure they really want to keep the Panda there, and take it, and it's nothing to sneeze at. $15.3 million. It's only 1 year, so
yeah, it kind of reminds me of Pat Burrell with the Phillies. He wanted a multi-year deal. The Phillies were not entirely interested in that, and he never really got that last contract extension that he was looking for from a big name team. Sandoval has already rejected a 3-year, $40 million contract extension from the Giants that they offered up in March. So this, of course, not terribly much more than they offered him in March for a 1-year deal for $15 million, and I think he would probably be best to walk away from the Giants now and seek his fortunes on the market, the open market.
But is there fortunes out on the open market? We don't know that either. He's a terrific October player, but you have to get there first. His numbers during the season are okay, they're not terrific. I think he hit 267 last year with 16 homers, if I remember correctly. Or the RBIs, I don't remember, but I don't know. I mean, you're talking about $45 million plus for 3 years if you sign a guy like that, or even more. Is he a $20 million ball player? If he played all year like he does in the playoffs in the series, I'd say yeah. But there is that he seems like he's a money player. When October comes, boy, he takes off.
Yeah, a team like the Tigers or somebody like that might be interested in him. I really think he's going to go the way of free agency. We'll have to see what he chooses. Of course, he turned down that $40 million in March. Assumably that offer is off the table. But now it's $15.3 million, 1-year deal offered up. And as you said, he had 16 home runs and 73 RBIs, but anymore these players are getting $10, $12, $15 million for those kind of numbers. So it's good to be a baseball player.
I'll say. We were born too late, Rich.
Yep. Other Giants included in those free agents, of course, Michael Morse, Jake Peavy, Sergio Romo, and Ryan Vogelsong, all free agents at the end of the season now. And a lot of people have some decisions to make. We'll have to see where some of these guys end up playing.
Yeah, to me, I think out of that group, the guy that they would probably miss the most, and I'm not even sure of that, but probably would be Michael Morse. Um, PV came in late, so I don't think it would be that great of a loss to miss him. They may have guys in the minors that they can plug in to pitch, and they'll be getting Matt Cain back next year. Vogelsong, they may be able to keep him cheap. He's 38 or 37, something like that. So they may be able to get him for a 1 year, low contract to because he's got to be getting near retirement. And it's like every other team. It's a fascinating time, and we'll have to see. And boy, there's been tons of movement already, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. But really, an interesting time of the year as the game has changed so much, Rich, with all of these contracts and free agency and manipulation, and the teams don't want to spend money like they used to. They're going towards the homegrown approach and filling in, and free agency is taking a whole different route than it used to be.
Yeah, it's almost like the StubHub when it came into ticket buying. Before, I wasn't a big fan of StubHub. I thought that it would escalate ticket prices. Ticket prices would end up being higher than they should have been, but it actually works in reverse sometimes. Most of the time, you can pick up a game for a song and a dance, and maybe that's the way free agents will start to be going. Cheaper than you would think.
Right, could be. But you can see the game changing to where it's not like the Yankees used to buy free agents to fill out a team. Now you want to build your team with a solid farm system, and then add in for those key missing pieces. And
exactly.
Teams that haven't embraced this they're going to be left in the dust. I think in a way it's left the Yankees are out of touch with what's going on now, and could be in for a long haul. But when you got that much money and they don't care, they can do whatever they want anyways.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 2010 Giants roster here. You got players Aubrey Huff, Freddie Sanchez, Juan Uribe. They practically rebuilt that team over the last 3 or 4 years with different players in different positions, and still kept that philosophy of, like you said, not the superstars, but the guys that are producing on the field. They didn't even have a guy with more than 100 RBIs in 2010, the Giants, when they won it all. But they have some solid guys that are producing 85. They have a couple in 2010 that produced that, and a couple high 60s. So you're getting some mid-level performance out of these guys, better than you would expect sometimes, and you're not paying them a ton of money.
And a lot of homegrown talent. Posey and Lincecum and Bumgarner and Panic and Belt and Crawford, and that's really the core of the team. And that's the way I think you have to do it. Everybody says I hate to keep going to the Yankees, but they didn't win all those championships when you think about it. If you go back and look at it, and when they had that hot streak in the 90s and the early 2000s, they didn't win with free agents in there. They won with the core four, whatever they call them. They had Bernie Williams was there. Then they had Jeter. They had Posada. They had Mariano. And then they filled in around those guys. But they filled in with guys like Scott Brocious and Paul O'Neill and Aaron Boone. It wasn't until Steinbrenner started wanting to get an all-star at every position is when they went back down again, when he started bringing in Giambi and all of those, and A-Rod and everything. So, even then they had the right idea with the farm system. They let it get away from them. They wanted to be the kings all the time and spend tons of money, and It doesn't always work because there's only one ball. It's almost like with a basketball team. They said there's one ball, and it's a little bit different in baseball. But still, that philosophy, I think, is going out the window, and you need to have at least a good core, and money-wise, too, of young, homegrown talent.
Yes, indeed. That's been the San Francisco Giants' way to winning in the past couple years. Well, we want to thank everybody for listening to MLB This Week podcast. And, of course, you can sign up for our contact page at MLBThisWeek.com, where you can find out when we do our shows. You can listen to us live or, of course, listen to us on the podcast version. We're on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, and BaseballTalkRadio.com. Anybody out there that wants to email us a story or something we should be talking about, a comment or a question, you can send your email to talk@MLBThisWeek.com to get a hold of us.
Yes, sir, and check out all of the great talk shows, the baseball talk shows at BaseballTalkRadio.com. It's a great website. It's got all of our shows on there. It's got Rich's Phillies Talk and my Mets Musings. And we've got Milwaukee Brewers and San Francisco Giants. And
the Braves in there, too.
And the Braves and all kind of Royals. Every team you could name. Even some you can't name, the Canadians and the Japanese baseball league and fantasy league. It's all at baseballtalkradio.com, so go check it out.
Yep, it's a great place to hang your hat, listen to a few programs here and there. You'll pick up some shows I'm sure you'll like. Well, Gary, tomorrow's election day. And people can actually elect us. They can elect to listen to our podcast. So if you're tired of politics and all, you just want to hear some great baseball talk, tune into Gary and I's show, MLB This Week. We also do our own individual shows. Gary does a couple shows, one on the Mets called Mets Musings, and one on the Brooklyn Cyclones, the single A affiliate, is it, Gary?
Yeah, it's the short season single A affiliate of the New York Mets. They play 78 games. They start in June and end in September. They play literally every day, like with 4 days, I think, off the whole season. So we're on a little bit of a hiatus with that show right now because there's really nothing going on in the minor league baseball. But Mets Music's still going, and Rich just did a show, a Phillies Talk show this past week. So go check that out, him and his co-host, Jim Mulray. So check those out as well as all the other fine shows on BaseballTalkRadio.com.
Yes, indeed. Well, our next story, we're kind of like the Good Morning America of news here for baseball, and this is going to take a kind of a strange turn, but a veteran has said that enough is enough when it comes to tributes for the soldiers. And this comment coming out of a veteran named Rory Fanning. He's talking about all the tribute concerts and the public thanking of troops at sporting events, especially baseball. He's made the argument that they've reached a point in baseball where there's many charitable efforts, but they're overdoing it with the veterans ceremonies. For Game 1 of the World Series, for example, there was several local veterans that were at special activities designed to honor veterans, things like that, pregame ceremonies and ceremonial first pitches honoring different local veterans. And it's kind of an overdone thing, according to him. He kind of would like to see less of it. And when you look around baseball, it certainly does seem like they've embraced the soldier, the patriotic theme very strongly, much more so than football has.
Well, Rich, it isn't America's pastime, and it's always been there in times of war and times of peace. And I don't think you can ever do enough of these kind of things for the veterans and stuff. It's too bad. We have this conversation. You see a lot of these commercials for these different groups, like I can't think of the name, but it's for the wounded warriors, the wounded war vets. And I even said to the wife a couple of times, it's really a shame that we have to have an organization. Thank God there's an organization like them. They do wonderful work. But you know what? It's really a shame that we even have to have an organization like that for them. That this is stuff the government should be providing for these soldiers, and they're not. So somebody's got to pick up the slack. And those of us old enough to remember the Vietnam era and how those veterans were treated, this is nice to see that they're getting the respect that they deserve. And I'm a little put back by what this guy had to say, but I don't think that would be the general consensus of veterans, that they don't do enough. I think they appreciate what's being done, and I think it should continue to teach, if nothing, to teach the young kids the respect that they should have for the Army and all the veterans, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, all of our men in uniform.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I'm not agreeing with it at all. I'm just bringing up the story that appeared just a couple days ago, and I think he's approaching it, this one veteran, at more so, how did baseball seem to ally itself with just the general notion of the military and things like that, almost supporting the political actions of the country. And of course, there's a lot of people with different views on this, for or against, but it just does seem like baseball embraces this an over amount of, more so than any other sport. You really don't see it. I mean, I'm not downing it myself either. I think it's great that we honor our veterans and things like that, but it does certainly seem like it is a little bit overdone. And I think I know where this guy is coming from. This was a story on NBC Sports blog called Hardball Talk, and there was a fair amount of comments on it too, 280 some odd comments on this. But very interesting talk there from a fellow veteran. So we'll have to see if this makes any ruffles or waves about in the local medias.
I think it will.
Well, moving on with the show, we have a story about technology and stuff like that.
Well, Rich, I don't know if you hung around. It ended kind of late, the game. So I don't know if you hung around for the presentation of the MVP trophy. But the guy that was there from Chevrolet, I guess it's kind to say he was a nervous wreck, this guy. I mean, you could see the sweat was pouring off his face, and he had to make this presentation, and it was very awkward. It was physically awkward. You could see it. The poor guy lost his train of thought. He kept looking at he had these index cards. It was really a tough thing. And even Bud Selig had to scratch his head one time. He didn't know what the heck was going on. And it even got to the point where they had the truck on the field, and they went to a shot of the truck on the field. And this guy was so flustered that he just said the truck, it's a brand new 2015. I think it's a Chevrolet Colorado, and it's just full of new kind of features and technology and stuff. Now this really, it caught on. The internet, of course, ripped this guy to pieces. They called him the Chevy Guy, awkward awards ceremony. They compared him to Tommy Boy, the movie with Chris Farley. He's a big guy, and he was sweating, and it just was very uncomfortable. And I remember sitting here when he said technology and stuff. I just damn near cracked up laughing because it's just the way he said it, and of course he was. It was embarrassing, but in a follow-up that I saw today, I got to give it a Chevrolet and their genius. They actually took this and ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
And they created a whole new publicity campaign based on this guy's statement, technology and stuff, and had a full-blown ad in USA Today, and the ad is a picture of the truck, and it says technology and stuff. So the guy, he's an important guy. I mean, he's got a big job with Chevy, some sort of vice president. Who knows? They've got 50,000 of those things, but was obviously, how can I put it? Very uncomfortable. If you can, go get this. Go get the video. You can. It's on. I'm sure it's on YouTube by now. Just type in awkward award ceremony, World Series or something, and you'll see. And he delivers that classic. Now it's a classic line, technology and stuff.
So, embarrassment and near collapse on stage there. Something good came of it.
Yeah, they took a negative Chevy and turned it into a positive.
That's amazing. So that's an all-time classic photo you had there of Mr. Seelig scratching his head, wondering what was going on with that speech as well. But we will have a link to the to what Gary had just talked about in the blog at MLBThisWeek.com. You can watch that little clip there. And no, I did not see that at the end of the World Series, Gary. But yeah, that's an interesting story.
Yeah, it was. I was just hanging around because I wanted to see who got the MVP, even though it was pretty much of a no-brainer at that point. But you can't help but feel bad for this guy. I mean, he was totally, and you could see it right from the beginning. He was a hamina right from the beginning, and went right to the index cards, and that didn't help much. And then they went to the picture, and then when he said technology and stuff, and of course that's what everybody got a hold of on the internet. And but hey, they've turned around and made a good thing out of it, and it's made this guy infamous, maybe online as the Chevy Guy, and so his name was Rick Wild. And he was the guy that Chevy sent to Kansas City to present the award, and maybe the next year they'll either train these guys or they'll have to audition to go to do this.
Yeah, but really, I mean, if you've been to car shows and things like that, people read or memorize lines, and something from that is more from the heart. So it's just, what he was thinking about at the time. So I could see why Chevy could pick up on that and run with it.
And it's got to be nerve-wracking because he's not looking at the camera at all, but it's still, there's 23 million people watching, and your bosses are watching, and you don't want to make a complete idiot of yourself, though he wasn't exactly successful in that matter.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy. People say, you go up there, you hand in the trophy. But Chevy wants you to say about the car. They want you to, and you can see him trying to get out about the car. And I kept, it's funny how I don't know if you do it, but I'll be watching something on TV and I'll be going, I think you ought to cut it now. Shut up. Don't say any more. Just give him the freaking trophy and that's it, And I was doing that with this guy, but he kept going on, and then I know they intended to go to the truck, but I think they tried to go to the truck to help him out a little bit. And like I said, when he said, "Well, oh, there," I think he even said, "Oh, there's a picture of the truck now, and it's full of technology and stuff." Instead of tech, I think maybe I would have said technology and lots of other new features. But when he said techno, it's not something you expect from. I think he's a vice president or something with Chevy. It's not something you expect. It's full of technology and stuff.
Yeah. Very interesting there. Well, another interesting event happened in the world of baseball this past week. Joe Madden, of course, led the Tampa Rays for a number of years to some important games. In fact, the World Series in 2008, he's no longer with them. In a matter of a week's time now, he's got let go from them or excused himself out of the contract there, and he got hired on with the Chicago Cubs. And just today there was a press conference in Chicago introducing Joe Madden to the Chicago media, and he actually offered to buy all the press people there a shot and a beer. So that was a way to get introduced into Chicago very nicely, and the Cubs held this at a local bar right outside of Wrigley Field, so that hence the offer there from Joe Madden to pick up the tab for everybody's shot and beer. They also said he used the word synergy and the word philosophy around 200 times, and he talked at about 100 miles per hour. So Joe Madden, they're now just chomping at the bit to get on the field with the Cubs, it seems.
Do you think he's the modern-day Casey Stengel, like this generation's version of Casey Stengel? He'll do a good job there. I know Vegas, the Cubs were, I think, a 50 to 1 odds to win, and now since they signed him, they're 20 to 1. No, he doesn't go on the field and actually field the ball, but he does have some influence, I guess they feel. Terrific manager. Let's see what he does with the Cubs. And of course, a good guy, Rick Renteria, he got fired in this whole mess and really probably didn't deserve to get fired, but even the Cubs said that they felt bad about that, but when you get a chance to get a guy of his caliber, you have to take that opportunity. We'll see how it works out for him. He is changing leagues. Can change your philosophy a bit, and we'll see how he makes out.
Yeah, a reporter there at the press conference was asking him, did he know what he was getting himself into, of course, with the Cubs, how they've been finishing in last place for the last several years. And he's somewhat philosophical about it. He's got a good attitude, and maybe that'll rub off on the players. We'll have to see if that works for them.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that works out for them.
Other baseball news, another story here that I didn't originally script, but the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles here has fired the scout who recommended drafting Mike Trout.
Wow.
Who's been the best player in baseball for the past 3 seasons. In fact, he might be winning another award tonight on the Players' Choice Awards that is currently on MLB Network as we're doing our show. Fired this gentleman. His name's Greg Mordhart, served as a national cross-checker for the Angels, and he actually pegged Trout as a future star when most teams shied away from him. So most people won't remember that Trout was selected in the 25th overall pick by the Angels, and he took him 2 years to make the MLB, but he won his first MVP award. He looks like he's headed for that at age 23 in this season, so we'll have to see if he does that. But the Angels let this gentleman go. Not renewed his contract for 2015, this scout.
Wow. Any reason given, or just...
They declined to discuss why, but just announced that they weren't renewing his contract. So maybe there's a team out there that would want to pick this guy up for recognizing the talent of Mike Trout.
Well, those scouts are it's a small fraternity, so they usually go from team to team, and maybe somebody will pick him up and he won't be out of work.
That's for sure. Well, moving on in the show, Gary, you have comings and goings, thinking about that title from our last story.
Well, Rich, there's been a lot of activity, and I'm just going to try to read it real quick without a lot of background, because I think it's like 3 pages long of things that have been going on already. But just to give you an idea, the Red Sox have signed Koji Urahara for 2 more years. The Cincinnati Reds exercised Johnny Cueto's $10 million contract option, but let outfielder Ryan Ludwig and infielder Jack Hanahan become free agents. The Yankees reinstated Alex Rodriguez from the restricted list. The Indians exercised their $3.5 million option for next season on infielder Mike Aviles. The Dodgers pitcher Dan Harron on Thursday exercised his $10 million player option. Center fielder Denard Span is staying with the Washington Nationals, who exercised their $9 million option for 2015, but they declined options on first baseman Adam LaRoche and reliever Rafael Soriano. Little surprise there on Soriano. The Orioles have exercised a $4.75 million option on left-hander Wei Yin Chen and a $4.25 million option on right-hander Darren O'Day. Ben Zobrist, $7.5 million option for 2000 has been exercised by the Tampa Bay Rays. The Angels have exercised their $7 million contract option on closer Houston Street. The Mariners have right-hander Isashi Iwakuma under contract for the 2015 season. They exercised his option. The Brewers exercised a $13 million option on Giovanni Gallardo, but they declined to pick up the option on Ricky Weeks. The Cardinals have exercised their 2015 contract option on pitcher John Lackey, which is at the major league minimum. Is an interesting story there somewhere. The Tigers announced that they have extended 1 year a qualifying offer to impending free agents Max Scherzer and Victor Martinez. Additionally, the team announced that utility man Don Kelly and right-hander Evan Reed have been outrighted off their 40-man roster. They've also announced they have selected the contract of outfielder Winton Bernard, adding him to the 40-man roster. The Royals declined their option on Billy Butler for next season, making former All-Star designated hitter a free agent for the first time in his 8-year Major League career, though the rumor is that they hope that they can re-sign him for less money in the future. And the Dodgers declined a $14 million option on pitcher Jed Billingsley and bought out the right-hander for $3 million. And reliever Brian Wilson exercised his $10 million player option with the Dodgers. And, Rich, we already had a trade as Adam Lynn was traded from the Toronto Blue Jays to the Milwaukee Brewers on Saturday for right-hander Marco Estrada, ending the first baseman's 9-year run in Toronto. I'm sure there's a ton others that I missed, but that's just what's been going on in about 7 days since the World Series ended. Not even. A ton of moves already by teams, releasing guys, not taking up an option, picking up an option, and just a taste of what's been going on.
Who says there's no news in the off season with baseball? It's a year-round type of thing going on. A.J. Burnett not re-signing with the Phillies. He had a $15 million deal for 2015 if he wanted to come back. The feeling was mutual by the Phillies, so A.J. Burnett may be coming back to baseball or he may not. He hasn't decided yet, but it won't be with the Phillies. So as you said, there's a lot of big names out there, some free agents. We'll have to see if these teams, these powerhouses like the Yankees of yesteryear, the Phillies of yesteryear now, and maybe we can even throw the Dodgers in there. They're still going to spend the big sums of money that they spent last year, now knowing that that might not be the way to a championship.
And they've got a ton of free agents also, including Hanley Ramirez, who I'm sure they want to try to hang on to at this point. But like you said, it's going to cost them. And they, of course, brought in a lot of these high-priced guys to win, and it just hasn't worked.
Nope. Well, we'll be here for you talking all about baseball during the off season. We're going to have some special guests, things like that to talk about over the long off season now that it's November and into December and January, of course, and then we'll be starting our talk about spring training of 2015. And Gary, it's been a great year of baseball talk. We want to encourage all our listeners to stay with us and stay focused.
Yes, and we'll be, as you said, we'll be talking baseball and looking for those oddball stories that maybe you haven't quite seen on your local news or on your usual internet websites.
That's right. We'll be almost like the world news tonight of baseball for you. So tune in often and early. And thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you on the next edition of MLB This Week, the podcast.